Good evening. My name is Brian Yazzie. I'm Navajo or Diné. I come from a small community called Diné, Arizona, which is on the um, Navajo Nation reservation and on the Arizona side. Currently, I reside here in St. Paul, Minnesota, with my wife, Humana Polk, and I am the current executive chef at Gatherings Cafe, located at the Nelk building in South Minneapolis. We're in a temporary location due to renovation at the Minneapolis American Indian Center, reopening in 2024. So, as a chef, I work on indigenous food cultures across the U.S. and specifically in the Southwest region, but I live here in the Midwest area. My wife and I have been residing here for the past not 9-10 years now, I believe, and we have been welcomed with the Dakota and Ojibwe people within the area, the Twin Cities area, and within the region as well. And with the work that I do, we travel a lot as a couple, and we talk a lot about food sovereignty. And we try and use that within our healing process as a couple in a relationship, And with that, I try and respect and organize ingredients as I use them, as a process of, feeding myself, feeding the people, feeding the community, right? So every ingredient matters to me, and depending on how they would be used, right? So this evening we'll be making a wild rice and root vegetable stew or soup, and I'll go through a couple items here, but I'd like to give a shout out to the Clan program, MBIC, and everyone who helped with the event for Family Fun Night, right? And my apology for not being there this evening. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna name off a couple ingredients that we have, and I'll get right into it. I have some wild rice on the stove. I have some squash in the oven, and my pot here for the soup or stew is warming up and ready to go. So I'll go ahead and get started. With this vegan recipe, you can definitely add protein if you want. You can add red meat, you can add fish, whatever you like. Okay, so we also have some wild rice bread here that were also leftovers from the cafe. So we'll use this at the end as well. All right, so let's start off with the liquids here. Oat milk. We can use almond milk, but it's a little sweeter, even the original flavor. So oat milk is a little more mild. So sunflower oil that we'll use that on the squash and also on the veggies. We have some cornmeal here, yellow cornmeal, vegetable stock or broth. And we have some Red Lake here, Minnesota, wild rice. We have some garlic, bay leaves, a mixture of spices and herbs. I can go through these. I have the recipe paper here with me. So we have parsley, dried flakes, sage, we have paprika, rosemary, oregano. The bay leaves are here off to the side. Black pepper, cumin, celery salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and the white corn flour here off to the side. Right, so this is a mixture of the spices and herbs, and we'll use towards the end of the process of cooking. We have some butternut squash. You can use any type of winter squash that are available. We have red potatoes. If you have russet potatoes, you can use those as well. Sweet potatoes. We have carrots. Rainbow carrots work great as well. We have parsnip as well. And let's see, garlic. I went through that as well. Okay, so with those ingredients, I'm gonna start cutting up the root veg. I'm gonna go down the list here, and it's giving me the measurements of how many or how much I'm to cut. Right. So with Wild rice, it's a cup and a half for raw wild rice cooked. And the recipe, it gives a definition of how, step by step, how to cook wild rice. And here, this one, I overcooked it a bit. So I put a cup and a half, and I brought it to a boil and simmered it for about 20 to 25 minutes. And from a cup and a half to about 6 cups is where the wild rice is at right now. I can show you. So that's how much it made from a cup and a half. Right. So this is a darker wild rice. The lighter wild rice, he definitely had more volume in that. So this is hot. This is hot and ready to go. It's already cooked. I just have it on simmer right now. So if I mix this up, it may go up about a cup or 2. Let's find out real quick. 8 cups. So what about 2 cups? So you don't have to use the whole thing. So right now, what I was aiming for is getting about 4 to 5 cups. So we'll use about 4.5 cups of the wild rice. And the leftovers you can definitely save for your casserole or whatever you like for the holidays with wild rice. All right, so let me put some oil in the pot here. I have about half a cup of oil. I'm using 1/4. So I'm gonna go down the line and start cutting these up, and I'm gonna start putting them into the pot here. So out of these ingredients, the hardest one to cook would be the parsnip. I know the skin is has a texture of its own, but there's a lot of health benefits in the skin as well. You know, so it's asking for 3 cups. Right, about 3 slices. We'll see, because some of these are a bit bigger and the others as well. So I'm going to cut these about in 4s and about 1/2 inch slices or dice. You know, however, the definition you're to use in the kitchen. For me, I grew up in a farming community, and there was a lot of corn culture in the area. And like my mom, you know, it's a lot of medicine food as well. She was a traditional forager with my auntie and my grandma. Right, so I started cooking at the age of 7 or 8, and just helping my mom in the kitchen. And you know, just one day walk into the kitchen and just start helping. You know, for me it was I'm gonna turn on the fan. It might be a bit loud. So for me it was the unconditional love she provided for the family, right? So just my way of giving back. And you know, being the youngest out of a sibling, you know, I'm always with my mom at home, right? So it's kind of going off of that. You know, it's where I picked up my passion for cooking. For indigenous food, I didn't start until I was, let's see, 28, 29. In 2012, my wife and I moved to Minnesota. And for me, I went to culinary school, culinary arts at St. Paul College. And receiving that degree is just something that benefited from the passion I had for cooking. Right, so around that time, 2014, 2013, my first semester, you know, there was no representation of indigenous food culture, right? It was just academic, universities, colleges, professors, right? So now, about 10 years later, you know, we have a whole movement of indigenous food culture, which is pretty cool. So I have about a bit over 3 cups here, about 3.5. I'm going to use that. So as you see, I only use 1. Those just went in. It's already sizzling. The oil was already heated. So the next one will be the carrots. The carrots is about 4 cups. Let's do 3.5. We'll do 3.5. Alright. Leave a lot of leftovers, but it's worth it. You know, similar to prep meal. You know, making food for your family during the holidays. I'm gonna cut these about the same size. I'm doing a demo from home. The exhaust is a bit pretty loud at work, you know, our temporary kitchen, so just something that I have to work with, but you know, it's always good to be home and to do a demo from home. But the soup will definitely be enjoyed by the family for the next couple of days. Alright. I'm going to check my parsnips here in a minute. One thing I forgot to mention is I have a stick of butter here that we're going to use as well. I have about 2 cups right here of carrots. We'll need 1 more. Check in on the parsnips. They're already starting to turn brown. So I like to kind of char my vegetables when I'm making soup or stew. You know, it brings out more flavor from the ingredient. Alright, we'll do 1 more. Same about 1/2 inch cut. Usually you call this like half moon in the kitchen, half moon cuts. You have so many different definitions of culinary slang. Like I said earlier, you can definitely add bison or different type of protein. Turkey goes good with it. So I'm gonna add the carrots now to the pot here. I'm gonna mix it up. The next thing will be the red potatoes. Alright, red potatoes. That would be about 4 cups, but we'll do the same thing. We'll go with about 3 cups. And here is a family of 5. So I have to keep the recipe a bit on the lower end. Potatoes will cook faster than parsnip and the carrots, but that's okay. You know, potatoes will soften, but it won't get as soft as mashed potatoes, right? You'll still have some texture. Especially red potatoes, they hold up their skin pretty well compared to russet potatoes. Do 1 more. I can smell the carrots now. So for me, when I make soup at home, I like to cut them in chunks. Right, so you have different options of when you're eating soup. Maybe when you have corn on the cob, right, cut them into pieces and make them in your stew or soup. The cob gives them more flavor too. I'm gonna add the potatoes right now. I burned myself in the kitchen earlier. I was opening the oven and the door was a bit hot, and it's just one of the tattoos you get in the kitchen on the regular day. I'm gonna turn this up now. I have it at 2. We'll turn it up to about 7. That's medium high. We'll do that for a couple minutes before we go to the next step here. We'll mix it again. Yeah, it's cooking really fast. Alright, so the next step would be garlic. We have that. We'll do that one real quick. I'm about 4, but we're going to do 2 since I'm only doing a recipe for 5. Right, but you can definitely follow that. Now the shell's pretty hard. The garlic here. There we go. this up really quick. So I graduated in 2016 with a SW in Culinary Arts. And, you know, I hit the ground running, if you may. I started catering, flip the cutting board over. Since I have no meat, no protein, it's just the veggies that I'm working on, so I can use the same cutting board without washing it. Let's check on this really quick. And my wife and I started a catering company called Intertribal Foodways. And since 2016, we travel internationally to different parts of the world, you know, just helping to bring awareness to the indigenous food culture that's been overlooked here in the U.S. or in North America, you know, but not excluding the Americas and Canada, right, Alaska. And these are all within the same family of food cultures and the communities that we have, right? So, you know, definitely hard work. It's a lot of travel and a lot of hours put in, but at the same time, it's rewarding to see the effect from it. Right, the ripple effect in the communities of how food sovereignty is brought back to life. You know, from planting seeds to agriculture development, right, to hemp farms, to seed saving, right, to these different type of avenues, but all tied to food sovereignty and tribal sovereignty, which is really cool to see right now. I can start to smell the carrots more now. Parsnip, I can barely smell that, but the carrot kind of overpowers that. Alright, I'll let that go just a couple more minutes here. I'm going to mince the garlic here. So, you know, we travel, and when the pandemic hit, you know, we had to halt our company, right, as a business, and as a chef, you know, I wanted to continue in the community and see how I could help during the pandemic. And I reached out to a friend of mine named Ben Shindu, who was the former executive chef at Japanese Cafe, and I asked, you know, are you guys need any help on the line? Are you feeding the community? You know, is there a way I can help with mutual aid or with connections? You know, and I found out that they had a grant and they were trying to start a program, right? And my friend Ben, you know, was asking me, you know, who I'm available to help lead the program or even help start the program, right? So I had to stop my work, so that's one thing I took on as a volunteer work, and it came into a full-time position as a executive chef, right? So when the pandemic hit, we started feeding the elders. We started about around 500 to 800 meals going out weekly, and now after 2 years, now we're down to about 50 to 75 meals that go out now daily. You know, so it's it was, you know, a lot of hard work, but at the same time, you know, it's like I said, rewarding to see that our elders are getting the food that they need, the traditional ingredients, you know, especially living in the urban area, in the urban community, right? And it's good now and then to get some traditional food. But at the cafe, you know, we're blessed and able to use resources to purchase ingredients like bison, turkey, walleye, you know, wild rice, just some of the simple staples of indigenous food. All right, so let's move on right here. All right, so I got all the veggies in with the sunflower oil here, and they're just about ready. But the next step would be the butter. And okay. So just like making roux, if you're familiar with culinary, roux is like making gravy, right? So we're gonna do something similar to that. And then once I'm doing that, I'll bring the pot up here and kind of show you guys what I'm doing. You know, besides that, I'll be talking you guys through it. And mix this one more time before I add the butter to it. All right, smells really good. All right, I'm gonna drop the half stick of butter in there now. I'm gonna wait for that to melt before I add the flour or the corn flour. Slowly whisking or use a wooden spoon to or a rubber utensil, whichever one you have. Right. So rubber utensil, we have one of these here, or something like that. Or else if you have a wooden spoon, one of these would work. Because you don't want to scrape the bottom of the pan. Alright, let me mix this up really quick. Alright, it's halfway melted. I'm going to turn this down to just a low medium. Right, so I'm going to let that cook here. So the next thing we'll be adding the corn flour. We'll make that roux, that slur, and then we'll add in the vegetable stock and then the almond milk. But we'll do that one different with the squash on the recipe because here at home I don't have my my blender Vitamix with me right now. So we're gonna do a different process with the squash. If you have the recipe. Instead of using a blender, we're going to have the baked squash and we're going to push through the strainer and see if that would work, right? So it'll be similar to getting puree. Alright, butter melted now, so I'm checking the bottom, making sure nothing's stuck to the bottom, you know. It's it hurts when you're making soup at home and you start burning the bottom and you mess up the whole soup, right? So always check the bottom. Alright. So now I'm going to use the same wooden spoon and slowly mix in the corn flour. Now, I'm not going to add too much. I think, like I said, it's just a recipe for 5. Smells just like roux as well, but roux is wheat flour, right? But here we're using a corn flour, and this one is Pima, roasted Pima corn, 60-day corn. It has its own specific flavor. If you're interested in native resources, there's a farm in Gila River, south of Phoenix, Arizona, called Ramona Farms, which is where I purchased the cornmeal and the corn flour from. Now they have on the website has a range of corn flour, dried kernels, steamed corn, Hopi corn, red Havasu pie corn, so all these different stuff that you can make. All right. So before that burns, I have the roux. Let me bring that over. See that here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's similar to making gravy. Alright, so now I'm going to add the stock. I'm going to add 5 cups to start with. And that's usually, give or take, the whole container. It's about 4.5 to 5 cups. Depending on the brand, the ounce is always different. I'm going to mix that up before the flour gets clumpy. You don't want the flour to break when you're making roux and making soup or stew. Alright, making sure the bottom is not getting stuck. Alright, that looks good. Alright, the next one. There's one thing I forgot to mention is culinary sage. But since I already had powdered sage in here, so I don't have to use that part. Okay, the next one is the squash. Right, that's the puree part that's going to come in. So I have that in the oven, and I'll explain the recipe as well here in a minute. Cool down just a bit. Alright, so this one, I only need half of one. So, just cut one in half. You can leave the seeds in if you want. You can definitely eat that as well. It's roasted. Or else you can spoon that out and toss it. Here, I think we're going to spoon it out and just place it on the side for now. Like I said, it cooled down a bit. When you work in the kitchen, you burn your hands and you kind of lose feelings in your hands for a bit, right? Alright, so now the seeds are out. Let me check on the super real quick. Now the seeds are out, we're going to get it through the strainer and see if that would work. Alright, nice. I'm going to use a ladle to push it through as well. Put the knife on the side. I'm going to scoop the ingredients to the side here a bit. There we go. So it's just a regular strainer. Right. If you have ones with the larger holes, that's okay. You can probably run it through twice. That might help. You know what? Oh, let's see. Put some gloves on, but I don't need to touch the squash. That part got hot. It was falling apart. Alright. You can definitely do this at home. It's pretty simple. I'll do a step here to show you guys how I usually do mine. Alright. I'm going to put that to the side, and there's still some stuff I can get off of here later on once it cools down a bit more. So I don't need that much right now. Like I said, it's only a recipe for 5. Looks good. Alright, I'm going to use a ladle and see if that works. Definitely more of a workout, but that's okay. Alright, so that's something we tried, but it stayed on the top, but that's okay. I'm going to scoop that out. Show you guys what I mean. Steel puree. Outside still. Let's take that off now. If I had cooked it a bit longer, it would have went through, but that's okay. So I usually do about 400 degrees for about anywhere 15 to 25 minutes, depending on the size of the squash. Right, so I'm gonna put this on the side. Oh, there's some more right there. Check on the soup. That's going good. I'm gonna turn it back up, back to medium or medium high heat. All right. So the skin right there. One more right there. Something wrong with that, but that's okay. So I didn't get that much of it, but it's okay. Right. Next time if I let it go a bit longer, I'm gonna get more out of that squash. Right, so we mix that in. I'm gonna change the color just a bit. Alright, I'm gonna switch to the wooden spoon, straight to the bottom. Alright, that part is done. So let's go through the squash really quick. Let's grab napkin and wipe this off. Wash it off a little bit. If your cutting board moves around too much, use a wet napkin. That keeps it in place as well. Pretty cool. Alright. So with the squash, we have the half slice. What I usually do is you can spoon that out before you bake it off if you're going to make a puree or however you want it. And usually I keep the skin on. It kind of holds it as a bowl or as a shield, right? So you can just scoop out the inside, the flesh. I usually just make slits across. I go about half an inch in. So to come out looking like diamonds or squares, right? And so it comes out looking like that, like zigzag and stuff. Next. So when that happens, the next step is right in the center of the flesh, the part that takes longer to bake or cook. I usually just do like a the letter U with a knife, just so that it creates an air pocket. The heat flow can definitely cook it the same amount of time as the edge of the squash. So there it is. And what I did is I add oil, I add salt, and I placed it up on the sheet pan and baked it for about 8 minutes. Then I placed it downwards and baked it for about 8 more minutes, right? So almost, between 18 and 20 minutes is where this was baked at. And on the oven, check over the soup here. So basically, that's how you bake off squash if you're making a puree of or even a mash, right? So the next step is the spices and herbs. So the same to add to the soup. So again, I'm not going to use the whole thing. It's only 5 of us here. Use about half of what I have here. There you go. So we mix that in. There's one step I missed, is the oat milk, but I'm going to hold off at the end for that. Alright, the next step is the wild rice. Alright, so if you're not familiar with wild rice or scared to cook it, it's pretty simple. The darker the wild rice, the longer it'll take to cook. The lighter the wild rice, the faster it'll take to cook, right? So, for me, I like a couple places that have good wild rice, but with respect to your viewers, I'm not going to mention which lake or which reservations I like wild rice from. All right, just toss in the bay leaves. Toss in 3. And it's going to create the flavor quick, since I have it on medium high. Alright, so the wild rice, like I said, the darker the longer it'll cook. The lighter, the faster it'll cook. Right here, I fluffed this one up. You know, so like I said, it was almost at 8 cups from 1.5 cup. It's interesting. Right now it's about 8.5 now. But I'm only going to use about 3.5 cups. This whole container is about 2 cups here. I'm going to fill this up. Let's see. Once I add the rice, I'm going to turn the soup down. A little over 2 cups right there. We'll do about 1/4 of a cup now, and we'll be at 3 cups. If I need more, I'll add more, but we'll stay at that right now. The longer the wild rice you cook, it'll get slurry, especially if you have it in liquid like this. If you have it in a casserole or, shepherd pie or something, that one's a different story. You don't hold its composure. But the soup's a liquid, it'll keep on getting slurry. So we'll see if I can tilt the soup a bit without spilling. That's what it looks like right now. I'll bring it up closer, let's see. It smells really good. And there's no protein in it. Right, there we go. Alright, now that the rice is in, I'm going to add the milk at the end now. So, because the reason why I'm doing that is, I don't want my, I don't want a stew, I want more of a soup, right? So tomorrow, it'll be perfect, it'll be stew tomorrow. It'll absorb most of the liquid, right? But tonight, we'll enjoy a cup of soup. There you go. So original recipe was asking for 2 cups of oat milk. I did about 1.5. Mix that up. That smells really good now. I'll see if I can tilt the camera down. Let me put this down for a minute. Well, let's put it. Let me bring the camera down here. There we go. There's the wild rice, the parsnip, potatoes. So I can zoom in. There we go. I'll take the bay leaves out, and I won't leave that in overnight. Like I said, tomorrow it'll be more of a stew. Well, the wild rice will absorb most of the liquid. Right. So that was the last step. And like I said, you can add protein, you can add meat, you can add turkey. I like turkey with my wild rice. Just like chicken and wild rice soup, right? But I do turkey and wild rice, really good. And it's just part of reintroducing our food culture, right? So it's looking at beef and looking at chicken a different way, right? Instead of beef, we have bison, right? We have venison, we have moose. We have these type of traditional ingredients that have been forgotten in some communities, and they have been reintroduced as well, which is definitely a good thing for our communities. All right, now I'm going to turn this down to low, and I'm going to let it sit for about 15 minutes. I'm going to let it reduce a bit more, and Brings out more flavor from the root vegetables, from the wild rice especially. And more flavor from the bay leaves as well. Then by that time, at that point, I'll shut off the stove and I'll take out the bay leaves. For me, I like a little hot sauce with my soup. Let's see. You need plate one here, and then I'll show you guys on camera. And I appreciate you guys' time, viewing, checking in. There it is. Even though it's a vegan style, it smells really good. Family just got a new puppy, just got a new dog, and I think I hear it crying there in the room. Now, chefs or cooks, right? We always look at presentations of our food, even if it's comfort food. One second. Go. Bring that close to the camera, and I'll bring the camera down. You have to see that. There you go. The light's too bright. So like I said, you can add your own protein to it if you need to. But you don't have to. It's great just the way it is. It's definitely done. But like I said, you can just let it sit on the stove all day and just have it reduced down more and more. Alright. Well, that's it for me this evening. A demo on a wild rice and vegetable soup or stew. Right, so with the herbs and spices, you can definitely add your own. I know not a lot of people like rosemary. Even same thing with oregano. It kind of has a bite to it, a lot of flavor, right? So, and even same thing with celery salt and garlic powder, right? There's one thing I didn't add is onions, and the reason for that is I have a family member who's not allergic to onions, but the preference of it. Right, so I just let the onions out. I don't have a problem with that. No one has a problem with that. So just a little compromise on that, on dinner and stuff like that with family. All right, so with the wild rice, like I said, this one's made in-house by one of our team members, Ida. She's from the Southwest area. If you know bread and baking, you see the bubbles, which is really cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna toast this in the toaster there, and we'll use some butter on here. Or at a kitchen, we would use the bison fat or turkey fat, and then we toast them on the grill or stove, right? But for me, I'll use a toaster here, right? So I'll probably toast it twice to get it kind of like a crouton, and I'm gonna use that as my bread for the soup tonight. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you and have a good night.